In the annals of history, few names resonate with the magnitude of Alexander the Great. Born in 356 BC, this prodigy was the son of King Philip II of Macedon and Queen Olympias. His birth was marked by prophecies, foretelling a life of unparalleled greatness. As a young boy, Alexander was tutored by none other than Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of all time. This early education instilled in him a thirst for knowledge and a profound understanding of human nature, both of which would prove invaluable in his future conquests. But it wasn't all philosophy and learning for young Alexander. His father, a shrewd king and an astute military leader, exposed him to the harsh realities of politics and warfare. These experiences shaped his ambitions, molding him into a leader of extraordinary prowess and strategic genius. By the age of 20, Alexander was ready to carve his name into eternity. The stage was set. A young, ambitious prince seized the throne following the assassination of his father, King Philip II. In the midst of chaos and intrigue, Alexander stepped forward, a beacon of ambition and determination. His father's death left a power vacuum that he swiftly filled, quelling rebellions and consolidating his rule with the tact of a seasoned leader, despite his tender age. He was more than just a king. He was a force of nature, a whirlwind of change that swept across the land. With the home front secure, Alexander set his eyes on a new target, the mighty Persian Empire. His plan was audacious, daring, and to many, outright mad. But Alexander was not a man to be deterred by the odds. He was a dreamer, a visionary who saw a world united under his rule. His ambition was his compass, and it pointed him eastwards towards Persia. His campaign against the Persian Empire was a masterclass in military strategy. The Battle of Issus, where Alexander's forces were significantly outnumbered, showcased his tactical genius. He turned the tables on the Persians, exploiting their weaknesses and turning their numbers against them. The victory was decisive, a statement of intent that echoed across the known world. But Alexander was not done. The siege of Tyre, a seemingly impregnable fortress city, stood between him and the heart of the Persian Empire. It was a daunting obstacle, but to Alexander, it was just another challenge to be overcome. After 7 long months of siege, the city fell, opening the path to the Persian heartland. Each victory brought him one step closer to his dream of a united world. But they also revealed his character, his unyielding determination, and his willingness to push the boundaries of what was possible. Alexander the Great was not just a king, he was a force of nature, reshaping the world as he saw fit. Alexander's insatiable thirst for conquest knew no boundaries. As he journeyed forth, his eyes were set on the vast landscapes of Egypt and India. His ambition was not merely to conquer, but to blend, to infuse the Greek culture, language, and ideas into these foreign lands. It was a task of monumental proportions, but Alexander was no ordinary man. Beyond the Mediterranean, he encountered the great Persian Empire. But even they couldn't withstand his innovative military tactics, which combined speed, flexibility, and the element of surprise. His army, although often outnumbered, was never outmaneuvered. His soldiers, inspired by his bravery and leadership, followed him even into the jaws of death. Upon reaching Egypt, he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians, weary of Persian rule, crowned him as their pharaoh. Here he founded the city of Alexandria, a beacon of Greek culture that would shine brightly in the annals of history. His journey eastward continued, leading him to the exotic lands of India. Despite the unfamiliar terrain and fierce warriors, Alexander's strategic brilliance prevailed. The Indian kingdoms fell one after another under his rule. But Alexander's conquests were not just about territorial expansion. He encouraged intermarriage between his Greek soldiers and local women, promoting cultural assimilation. He adopted customs of the conquered lands, showing respect and understanding for their traditions. He even introduced coinage system and built roads and cities, spreading Greek ideas and ways of life far and wide. Alexander's reign was not merely a reign of power, it was a reign of influence. His innovative military tactics, cultural assimilation policies, and infrastructural developments left an indelible mark on the world. He was not just a conqueror, he was a molder of civilizations. In a mere decade, Alexander had built one of the largest empires in history. But at what cost? The price of his ambition was steep, and the ripple effects of his conquests were yet to be fully realized. As we delve deeper into the story of this unstoppable conqueror, we are left to ponder, was the glory worth the sacrifice? Even the greatest of men are not immune to the ravages of hubris and mortality. This axiom held true for Alexander the Great. The sun began to set on Alexander's reign, not due to a formidable adversary on the battlefield, but because of a multitude of factors that gradually took their toll. One significant factor was Alexander's growing paranoia, often exacerbated by his excessive drinking. His mistrust towards those around him escalated, and he began to see enemies in every corner, even ordering the execution of his once trusted advisor, Parmenio, and his own son, Philotas. His paranoia wasn't entirely misplaced, though. The men who had followed him loyally across continents, through deserts, and into countless battles began to question his leadership. They had marched for years, and their homes and families were but distant memories. Fatigue, homesickness, and a growing resentment for their leader's perceived hubris led to a mutiny among his troops. This was a blow Alexander could not recover from. But it wasn't just the discontent among his men that signaled the beginning of the end. Alexander's health, both physical and mental, was in decline. His excessive drinking had made him prone to violent outbursts and erratic decisions. His body, once robust and resilient, was showing signs of wear and tear after years of continuous warfare. Despite his failing health and the mutiny of his troops, Alexander planned more conquests. He dreamt of a world united under his rule, a dream that would never come to fruition. His relentless pursuit of glory, his disregard for his own well-being, and his refusal to heed the concerns of his men all contributed to his downfall. In the summer of 323 BC, Alexander the Great, the invincible conqueror, met an enemy he could not defeat: death. His body, weakened by years of warfare and excessive drinking, succumbed to a sudden illness. His death marked the end of an era, and the world would never be the same again. The man who had once seemed invincible was, after all, only human. His story serves as a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of power and the inevitable march of time. On his deathbed, Alexander the Great uttered words that would echo through the ages. As the sands of his time were dwindling, he was asked to whom he bequeathed his vast empire. The response? A mystery that has persisted through the centuries. Some historical accounts claim that he declared, "To the strongest," a statement fitting for a man who had conquered the known world, suggesting a contest of power to determine his successor. Yet, other sources propose a different phrase, "to the best." This interpretation paints a different picture, implying a merit-based succession, a testament to the ideals of excellence and virtue. What did he truly mean? We may never know. What we do know is that these last words, however they're interpreted, ignited a struggle for power that would reshape the world. His cryptic last words left a power vacuum, plunging his empire into chaos. The death of Alexander the Great marked the end of an era, but his legacy was far from over. With the passing of this striking figure, the world was left in a state of shock and upheaval. The empire he had so meticulously built was left without a leader, and like a ship without a captain, it began to drift. His territories, vast and diverse, were divided among his generals, known as the Diadochi. This division, however, was far from peaceful. It led to a series of wars, known as the Wars of the Diadochi. Each general sought to expand his own sphere of influence, and the empire that Alexander had united was once again torn apart by conflict. Yet even as they fought, they carried with them the influence of Alexander. His strategies, his tactics, his vision for a united world, these lived on in the hearts and minds of those who had served under him. One cannot speak about Alexander's legacy without mentioning the cultural diffusion his conquests facilitated. His empire was a melting pot of cultures, a blend of East and West. Greek became the lingua franca across his territories, and Hellenistic culture spread far and wide. Cities founded by Alexander, like Alexandria in Egypt, became centers of learning and culture, fostering the growth of arts, sciences, and philosophy. The influence of his reign went beyond the borders of his empire. It seeped into subsequent historical periods, shaping the course of history. The Roman Empire, for example, was heavily influenced by Hellenistic culture. Alexander's military strategies continued to be studied in military academies around the world. His ambition, his vision, his relentless pursuit of greatness, these have served as inspiration for countless leaders and conquerors throughout history. The sun had set on Alexander the Great's empire, but his legacy would forever shape the course of history.